Glaude, and I'm happy to celebrate Black History Month with you this February. I'm so excited and honored that Harvard University Press is publishing my forthcoming book, We Are the Leaders We Have Been Looking For. You know, like so much in American life, we have outsourced our responsibility to democracy, outsourced it to politicians, outsourced it to so-called prophets and Marvel-like heroes. But I think this moment requires something more fundamental. It requires each of us to understand that we are the prophets, that we are the heroes, that we are the leaders we have been looking for. So in this new book, I grapple with what that means. I try to offer us a blueprint, a pathway to understanding our power to transform the world. And in doing so, you know, I struggle with the people who've meant so much in my life. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and of course, Miss Elle Baker. What I want to do today is share with you a portion, a reading from my new book. And it's about Malcolm X. Hope this sparks some interest. So let me just get started. Malcolm's life is the stuff of lore. His autobiography stands as a canonical text in American letters, introducing young and older readers to an extraordinary journey of self-creation. The backdrop to this story, of course, is Malcolm's role in the Nation of Islam, an organization quite skeptical, to put the point mildly, of the United States, as well as his strident criticisms of white supremacy during the brief period after his departure from the nation. We encounter in the narrative a figure of heroic stature, a paragon of black masculinity, daring to speak truthfully to white and black folks. In the words of Isaiah Davis's powerful eulogy, quote, "Malcolm was our manhood, our living black manhood." This was his meaning to his people, and in honoring him, we honor the best in ourselves. This view captures beautifully my own embrace of the autobiography. There I found the language to interpret my father's rage. He could not stand white people either, and perhaps that anger was at the root of his distance from us, from me. Unlike Malcolm, my father did not channel his rage into acting on behalf of the liberation of black people. Instead, he delivered mail, took care of his family, and deposited a generalized fear in me that I have had to work hard to hide. Malcolm became then a kind of surrogate father. His words offered a vivid picture of the kind of self I needed to create in order to become a man who would not be defined by a broken relationship with his father. I had my first conversion experience during the summer of 1986 at Morehouse College, the alma mater of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I had just finished reading Malcolm X's autobiography and became convinced that a certain form of black nationalism was black America's saving grace. The book affirmed a growing suspicion that I had about American democracy. I began to understand America as a nation consumed by white supremacy. I also felt that if black people were to achieve a modicum of sanity and well-being, they had to reject this country, that our allegiance had to be to ourselves, because the necessary condition for the flourishing of American democracy was the subordination of black people. One might describe this as a kind of proto-Afro-pessimist view. I made a choice. In theory, America was simply not for me, and a particular form of black nationalist politics became the way I articulated this rejection. This was indeed a conversion. It was a radical transformation of the heart that expressed itself in the way I lived my life. I stopped doing what ordinary college students do. I read Harold Cruz, Cheikh Anta Diop, George James, Walter Rodney, and other figures in the black nationalist canon. I reorganized my relationships and socialized only with like-minded persons. I noticed that all comported themselves in a certain way. So I did too. They even had a peculiar scent. I rubbed my neck with these incense sticks that smelled like nationalists because I did not know oils were the source of the revolutionary's odor. I was, after all, from a small town on the coast of Mississippi where the paper mill and the porgy fish plant provided smells most familiar to me. Black nationalist pieties were about as foreign as Islam. But my conversion to black nationalism marked a beginning. A way of defining myself as quote-unquote a man over and against an overbearing presence, the overbearing presence of my father's image. What better path to take than a politics that assumed manliness as a prerequisite for entree into the quote-unquote community of saints, a performance of unfettered masculinity where black boys could be quote-unquote men as they challenged white boys in the quote-unquote manly game of politics. My own understanding of black radicalism then was bound up in the languages and images of the black nationalisms of the 1960s and 70s. My romance deepened. In order to be militant, to not be my father, I had to be Malcolm. I bought my horn-rimmed glasses. I grew my goatee. I still have it. And I lost myself. I lost myself in the imitation of my hero. Yeah, there's so much more to read here. But in that moment, what I'm trying to do is to suggest that this idea of the heroic overshadows who I take myself to be becoming. It actually quiets my own voice. So I hope you find that interesting. I have a lot more to say about Malcolm. I have a lot more to say about Martin, and I definitely have a lot more to say about Miss Elle Baker. Again, I'm thankful to Harvard University Press for publishing my forthcoming book. We are the leaders we have been looking for. Take care.